Alright, once again in my Insomniac hour, I'm going to make another car audio video. This one is going to be about high sound quality. Okay? I realize a lot of people, they just want to be loud, but others want to sound good. They don't listen to hip-hop and stuff. They listen to jazz or classical or other types of music that are more demanding for sound quality than, the stuff I listen to. Although I'll listen to a little bit of everything, don't get me wrong. The first thing I'm going to cover a couple misconceptions is people automatically assume that they need to buy really, really expensive equipment to sound real good. The most important thing about high quality sound install is the install itself, where the speakers are positioned. Your car, the stock locations are terrible, okay? And the manufacturer put them there because it's a cheap place to put speakers, okay? The manufacturer doesn't think that the average driver is going to want, stereo audiophile demands in their car. Most of them don't, but the ones who do, you have to build speaker pods, okay? You just can't get around that. You have to work with fiberglass or pay somebody to work with it if you want really good imaging and aiming and stuff. All right. To have great sound quality, you got to be familiar with what's called a three-way component set, which consists of a tweeter, a dedicated mid-range driver, and a dedicated mid-bass driver. Okay. Usually, the tweeter will be about an inch. This is a tweeter bracket to give you an example of what tweeter size is. This is a 6.5 mid-range. This is actually meant to cover both mid-range and mid-bass, but a mid-bass driver, probably a little bigger surround on the little edge here, if you can see that, and it'll be about a 6.5. Some of them are a little larger, up to an 8 maybe. And your mid-bass driver, your mid-range driver rather, is about 4 inches. Okay. Proper install. This mid-range mid-bass driver comes from a company called CDT Audio. Let's see if you can read that there. They make good stuff, and you can get their stuff for a great price on wooferetc.com. CDT has a very long little explanation about sound quality on their website, and I tend to agree with most of it. The first thing to worry about with sound quality is probably your imaging and where your speakers are located in the car. A normal car has 4 speakers, usually like 2 in the back, either in the rear deck or the rear doors, and 2 in the front. Basically, that's going to make the sound seem like it's coming from all around you. For really high quality sound, you want it to seem like it's coming in front of you. Now, there is something called rear fill. I'll talk about that a little later. A lot of people don't even care about rear fill. Good sound comes usually from a three-way component set. You put your mid-range and your tweeter in the kick panel. Now, you put it in the kick panel because it's the only spot in the car where the speakers are, at best, an equal distance from your ear. Of course, the driver's side speaker is going to be closer, but in any situation, you're in the driver's side of the car. The driver's side speaker is going to be closer. In the kick panel, at least, the difference won't be as dramatic. Therefore, both left and right sound waves hit your ears at almost exactly the same time, and it will sound better as far as the imaging is concerned. A lot of people, in my opinion, make the mistake of putting their mid-bass driver in a kick panel. Most mid-bass drivers are made for what's called an infinite baffle enclosure, which is basically where you just separate the front wave of the speaker from the back wave with no real enclosure design. That is best done in a door that's been well deadened with any type of sound deadener. I recommend something called Amplification from the Second Skin company, but if you can get Dynamite Extreme for a good price, go ahead with it. It's pretty much the same thing. Running your mid-bass in a kick panel, it's doable, but it'll normally take more power, and you often won't get as good of a mid-bass response as you will in a door that's well deadened because you're using the infinite baffle enclosure that the woofer, that the mid-bass driver actually needs. The CDT website recommends keeping all these drivers clustered as close together as possible, because when you separate your drivers too far, like say having a tweeter in the A pillar and the mid-range way down in the kick panel, it'll seem like the sound will be coming from different places. You can get it to sound pretty good, but if you're looking for great sound quality, try to cluster them close together. Usually the mid-bass mounted low in the door, and then the mid-range and tweeter in the kick panel, and only about 6 to 8 inches really separates all the drivers. That's usually the best way to do it. Now, the company CDT also has this thing called an upstage system where they mount another set of tweeters actually high on the dash, which I haven't actually had any experience with, but it seems like a good concept. Um, of course, any component system like this, if you want good sound quality, you have to have an aftermarket amplifier to really bring out the life in these component sets. Some of these three-way sets want 200, 300 watts of continuous power, and your deck's 20 little watts is not going to really make them shine. Okay, it'll make them play, but it won't make them, it won't get what you paid for. There are two ways to go with amplification. One is an active setup and a passive setup. A passive setup is you run a full range signal from your amplifier to what's called a passive crossover that filters your signal and then sends it to your different drivers. An active setup is where the amplifier itself does the filtration, or a high quality processing unit does the filtration and then lets your amp amplify only one certain type of signal. An active setup will sound better at the highest level, but it will be a much more difficult installation. It'll be much more expensive. Passive setups sound fine, in my opinion. You want to be really crazy about it, go active. You got money, you want to go ape shit, do active. It'll sound better. Of course, we're sounding so good now, who can tell? With regard to your subwoofer setup, most people in sound quality situations do go sealed. They often go for a very flat response with the woofer. A lot of rap music guys like for their woofer to peak around 40 hertz with roll-off on both sides. It's a lot more quiet at 35. It's a lot more quiet, say, at 50. For sound quality sub-bass frequencies, you want a relatively flat response. You want your low 30 to sound pretty loud. You want your 40 to sound pretty good. You don't need bass that shakes you in a sound quality system. You just want to hear the lows and a flat response from a good woofer in a sealed box. Many different choices. A lot of people like JLW6 V2s. Those are a little overpriced, maybe, but they're a great sound quality woofer. If you got money, go ahead and buy them. Okay, great stuff. 212, a 112, 13.5 JLW6 V2 will give you great sound quality bass. That brings me to a brain fart because I'm freaking tired. So what was I talking about? Okay. So you got your whole system set up. You need to have a good deck that gives you, preferably try to have like a deck with a full band equalizer so you can tinker with the sound once you get it all in there. But as I said, the most important thing to do is in a sound quality system is to have aftermarket speaker pods, because some frequencies like sub bass and even mid bass are kind of non-directional. The subwoofer, you hear the bass no matter where it's mounted. Your mid bass is kind of the same, but once frequencies really get above 100 cycles, you start really being able to tell what direction they're coming from. So imagine in a stock system, your speakers are aimed at your ankles, because we all have ears on our ankles, right? You want to aim your speakers as best you can at your ears in the driving position. And at this point, if it's your car, screw the passenger. Aim the speakers at you because you put the damn thing in the car, right? Tweeters especially, try to make sure that the view for the tweeter, because the higher the sound gets, the more directional it is, make sure that that tweeter is not blocked by anything. I mean, the kick panel might get blocked by your leg, but of course, if you're dedicated enough, you'll shift it over. It'll be a little uncomfortable, but your sound quality is better. So, but basically put most of your effort into actually your imaging of your drivers. Now, a quick word about rear fill. Rear fill is they say that you should have a certain amount of sound coming from the back of you to make it more realistic. And there's some merit to this. The one mistake people make is in the rear fill install, they will have tweeters. You don't need any tweeters in your rear fill install. Tweeters are highly directional. Tweeters in a rear fill install can ruin your soundstage completely and defeat the purpose. If you're insistent on doing a rear fill install, do it with less power, high quality drivers, and do it with mid-range and maybe some mid-bass. But do not use tweeters. That will give you a so-called ambiance. But for me, I don't need any rear fill at all. Front speakers, do it fine. If you want to do rear fill, no tweeters back there. No. So there you go. That's how you can get really good sound quality. I wish I had more time because there's a lot more to talk about, but 10 minutes is up.